Hello, welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. This is episode 93, and we are in the middle of October, year 2023. A warm welcome to everybody joining me in this space today. It is a beautiful, crisp autumn day in the 50s. Our lows, I think, are going to be in the 20s and 30s, with highs in the 40s, 50s, maybe 60s still. It is perfect sweater weather. I have so much to talk to you about today. It has been about 2 weeks, and I thought about maybe spreading it out a little between this week and possibly recording another one next week instead of waiting 2 weeks to come back. But we're going to kind of see how this goes, and if I need to split it up, I'll split it up. We'll see. Everything I talk about will be linked in the description box below this video. Sometimes you have to click show more, or there's like a little arrow or something. I do use Ravelry for my projects, so there'll be a separate part for those projects listed below this video as well. I do provide closed captioning in all of my videos, so you just click on that CC button. If I talk too fast or too slow for your preference, you can also adjust the speed on here. Sometimes when I get really excited or animated about stuff, I tend to talk faster. So yeah, just kind of a heads up if you are new here. But yeah, lots of things. I'm looking at my notebook down here. I do keep notes in this notebook because otherwise I'm likely to forget something in my pile of stuff, and sometimes in between episodes I think of things that I want to talk about, and so I'll jot them in. Whether or not I get to them is a whole nother story, but at least I jotted it down, and sometimes I talk about it and sometimes I don't. So how I usually set up my episodes here, in case you are new, is in the beginning you will have seen a little vloggy part, and that usually just captures some scenes and things that have been going on in my life in the last couple of weeks or whenever the last episode was. And then we go into kind of an intro, life chat, and then I go into finished projects, works in progress, and then an eats and reads section where I talk about maybe things I've been cooking, books I've been reading. I know for some people they'll do all like the life stuff at the very end, or vloggy things, or just life updates at the end. For me, I purposely choose to put them in the beginning because I think it's important to know where someone's coming from or kind of who they are, or it just kind of sets the mood for what maybe to expect, or kind of like a welcoming you in type of thing. I don't believe that I can be just about knitting, or just about, I don't know, a project, a finished object or something like that. I feel like I am very much influenced by my surroundings, but also I am more than quote unquote just a knitter or just a maker. And we are people that have a lot of different facets and lots of different things about us, and some things we choose to keep private. There are boundaries. I'm a very big proponent of having boundaries, especially in very public settings like the vastness of the internet. And so though I do feel the importance of sharing things about like bits and pieces of my life so that you can maybe better understand where I'm coming from or who I am, or find things that are relatable, I do still very much believe in having boundaries and keeping some things private. I mean, I'm a very private person to begin with, and so you might think, oh, well, why does she have a YouTube channel? Why is she talking to this vast internet, like, public audience? Well, it is finding a balance that works for me, right? Everybody's balance is going to be a little bit different. Some people are much more of an open book, and that's fine. That works for them. That's not me. So I do pick and choose, what I feel comfortable sharing with the vastness of the internet. And yeah, I mean, so I guess what I'm trying to say is I put all the life stuff up front because, I mean, when I go into any sort of conversation with like a real life person, you ask how people are, how are their families, how are their kids doing in school, how are their furry babies, or like anything like that, right? We talk about life and just how things are going versus just like pulling out things to show people. I mean, I guess maybe we do that too, but I hope you're understanding where I'm coming from with this. Like, I want this to be, a sit down and chat type of thing, and I am welcoming you into bits and parts of my life that I share in hopes that, inspires you, or you find something relatable, or even if it's not relatable, that's okay too. I feel like people are okay to be different, and people are okay to learn from each other or just listen. You don't have to agree with everything I say. In fact, I would be a little scared if you did. I think something that's a problem I have with how algorithms and social media stuff is that they only want to feed you stuff that you like, or that they think you like, or that people agree with you. And I think there is a danger in that, because then you think that everybody thinks the same way or wants the same things, or your whole world is only that, when in fact it really isn't. And people have all sorts of different opinions, and you can be one way and like something else. And we're not meant to fit in like a box. We're not meant to only check off like certain things on some sort of checklist. We can like lots of different things and just be who we are. We don't have to only fit into like one persona. And I feel like there's a danger in people kind of getting sucked into thinking that they have to be that way, consciously or subconsciously. And I don't think we need to be like that. And so by not just talking about knitting, by not just like being about projects and finished objects and like being Instagram worthy or whatever the case may be, I feel like we are being more true to ourselves, and it's less harmful or damaging that way. And I'm not saying anything about like against a pretty picture or like against a flat lay or setup. Like, there's nothing wrong with those things. I just feel like for some people, they can get so wrapped up in thinking that they have to look a certain way or have to be a certain filtered grid or time, what is it called? Not a timeline. Anyway, I don't even know what it's called, but I just don't want people to feel like they have to fit into a certain box and they have to look a certain way or do things a certain way. Well, not even like physically, person-wise, but like whatever their social media is, that they have to fit into a certain look. That's just not reality. And I feel like I've said this in a previous episode before, maybe last year. I don't even remember, but you are more than your social media. You are more than your brand or account or whatever. Like, if the internet disappeared one day, you would still be alive and you would still be your own person, but you wouldn't have like that grid or that filter or whatever, or those hashtags. Like, you are still there. And so who are you if you don't have your social media? You're still real. So, whoa, I got off on a total tangent there, but you know what? I welcome it. So let's get started with the finished projects, because I have a lot of them. Hopefully the lighting will be okay. Our sun just all of a sudden disappeared and it's raining, and it is very windy and gray and getting really dark outside. So we're just gonna make do with what we got. I've got the lights on. Hopefully we'll be okay. So the first project I'm gonna share with you is the Anne's puffed sleeve sweater that I tested for designer Amy of Amy Sure Makes. And I'm going to stand up here so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. This sweater was a delight to knit. You can knit it in like a bouncy DK, or I did a worsted weight. I used Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted, which is 100% non-superwash Peruvian wool. There's this beautiful pleated shoulder detail. I chose to fold down the high collar and then just whip stitch it down on the inside. There's these puff sleeves. So this pattern is inspired by Anne in the Anne of Green Gables series by L.M. Montgomery. And, oh, I guess let me just show you the length before I sit down. So I think she gives you two options in the pattern, like a more cropped length to be more at a natural waist, and then a longer length. I think she's calling it high hip. I went somewhere in between, like maybe just an inch shorter than high hip. So I'm wearing high-waisted jeans here. My belly button is up here where the button of the jeans are, and let's see, that might be coinciding with maybe the top of the ribbing. Yeah, about there. I really like this length. I feel like it is very comfortable on me, and I can still wear it with dresses or skirts without it feeling like it's too long to go with those, but it is also comfortable with high-waisted jeans or pants. So I was going to tell you how many sizes there are in this pattern. I knit size B, which gives me about like 4 inches of positive ease. And I apologize for the need of clearing my throat some. The kids, of course, once they start school, they bring home once they start school, they bring home all sorts of germs. And I feel like as things are kind of opening up more during the pandemic, and there's just more germ circulation, if you will. And so, yeah, just a little congested here, but I'm doing okay, feeling okay. I've had 2 negative COVID tests, so we're just going to keep it that way, hopefully, and have hot tea and rest and, yeah, do what I need to do. So, the pattern has sizes A through I. So how many is that? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. 9. 9 sizes. Finished chest circumference of 32.5 inches up to 62.5 inches. And the recommendation of ease, I don't see it. Nope, don't see it. Okay, I think it's like a couple inches or something. There are 2 needle sizes used, US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter, and a US 6, which is a 4 millimeter, and I did get gauge with the yarn that I used, and it's at 20 stitches for 4 inches of stockinette in the round blocked. So if you choose a lighter weight yarn, it'll just end up more drapey, but if you want more of a structured look, then I recommend going, you know, with a bouncy DK, which is what Amy recommends as well, like a rounder one. Usually your non-superwash yarns might have a little more structure to them than a superwash one. It's not a blanket statement for everything, but in general. And I've used the Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted before, and I really like how it turns out, and so that's what I used. The colorway is Oyster Heather. It's kind of like a golden beigey color. I don't think it looks particularly heathered. Like, to me, heathered would mean there's like little bits of a similar color maybe, or a different color that just makes it look more dimensional or textured. But it still works. It looks very solid to me, I guess is what I'm saying. But I like this neutral. I feel like this sweater has a lot of flair to it on its own, with the eyelet detail in the raglan, the collar, the pleat, the unique sleeve construction with this I-cord bind off, and I just felt like I wanted to keep it more simple in color to let all of the details kind of shine. So I definitely recommend using like a tonal or solid. You could for sure knit it in whatever you wanted, light speckling or something like that, but I feel like a highly variegated would detract from the details that this pattern has to offer. I used about 400 grams, I think like 402 maybe, of this worsted weight yarn, and the Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted is a lower price point. It's less than $4 US dollars for 50 grams, and yeah, and it often goes on sale. So I think that for knitting a worsted weight sweater, it's a great option. And what else to say about it? I did knit my sleeves slightly longer, maybe an inch longer than what the pattern calls for, so that it hits just past the elbow, like what it calls for. I've just noticed in general, my arm length needs to go a little longer. Not my arm length. My arm length, my arm length is set. My sleeve length has to go a little bit longer for whatever size I pick, because size is usually based on your chest circumference. And I just feel like my arms always need to go a little bit. Not my arms, my sleeves. My arms do not need to get longer. My arms are just fine the way they are. My sleeves need to be longer. So even with like ready to wear clothing, I feel like oftentimes the sleeves end up being like bracelet length unintentionally, and then I'm always pulling at them. And so I would just rather them be a little bit longer, so I'm not pulling at them. For this one, I mean, it's not like I'm pulling at them because they're at the length they're supposed to be, which is just past the elbow. But if I had stopped where the pattern recommended, it would have been like sitting kind of right above my elbow or right at my elbow, which just would have been annoying. So I'm really glad I extended that. And then the only other modification I mentioned was the body length. I just knit it 1 inch shorter than the longer length listed in the pattern. So yeah, I think that is it for that. Yeah, on to the next one. So my Anne's puff sleeve I actually finished in September, but I think the last time I recorded it wasn't published yet. So I saved it to talk about it till after the pattern is published, and now I have 2 finished sweaters to share with you today. I'm debating whether or not to change and show you the other one also worn on the body, or just wear it the next time. Yeah, maybe that's what I'll do. I'll just wear it the next time. So this is the Heartwood Stripes. It is a circular yoke. So the other one, this one was raglan, the Anne's puff sleeves. This one is top down, circular yoke with striping in stockinette and in like a, I guess you would call that a garter detail. It's got these beautiful cuffs. It's a herringbone stitch sleeve cuff. It's got a nice folded collar like I've been really enjoying lately. And the bind off on the hem is a little bit different too. Oh, this is so nice. I love it. So Heartwood Stripes, and this pattern is by Tiff Nealon of Tiff Hand Knits, and I think there are 10 sizes. I knit the second size for about 3 to 4 inches of positive ease, and I think the recommendation is 1 to 4 inches of positive ease. And I knit mine in Earl Grey Fiber Company's Oolong DK, and it's 100% superwash merino. Now I have to say, in general, over time I've learned that I think I prefer sweaters knit in non-superwash yarns, mostly because superwash yarn tends to get heavy, and over time as you wear with gravity it pulls down. Things like that are stress points end up getting kind of stretched out and stuff, and like your neckline and underarms, and I don't know, it just ends up kind of wonking out a little bit over time. But non-superwash yarns don't do that. And so this yarn I actually purchased, the main color I've had since 2019, and the contrast colors I think I've had since maybe early last year, 2021. And I don't regret buying them. The colors are just beautiful, and it is so soft and so lovely. But I think just over time, you know, with knitting more sweaters and more things in general, that's just something that I've kind of learned for myself, that garments I think I prefer in general to be non-superwash yarns. But that being said, this 100% superwash merino DK is so lovely. Oh, and I will also say, I think for my kids, I'll still knit them their sweaters in superwash yarns because kids get really dirty and I would like to just be able to throw it in the washing machine. Some of you might be like, oh my gosh, throwing knits in the washing machine. But I do have a wool cycle and, you know, delicate cycle, and you can choose it to be cold water, very little agitation, and it's just what works for me. And everybody has to do what works for them. So, yeah. So for the kids, I think I'll still be doing superwash merino. It's super soft. I can throw it in the washing machine. It's just fine. But for myself, I think I would prefer knitting and non-superwash yarns. But anyway, this is so pretty and I love it, and these colors go together so well. It is kind of a perfect autumnal palette. The main color is rose gold, which is a caramely brown with pink and olive green. This main color here is called Autumn Walk, and it's like an orchidy pink with golds and oranges. And then this lovely olive green is called Bosque, and oh, you can see it better in the cuff. And actually the hem of the sweater is supposed to be knit in this same color as the collar, but I used DK weight yarn and I ran out, my yardage ran out. Plus, I extended my arm length and my body length by 1 pattern repeat, just because that's the fit that I wanted. And you will use more yardage if you use a heavier weight yarn. So, let me see if I have any of the yarns left. I think I saved them so that I could talk to you about them and show you them. Oh, there are my scissors. Okay. Put that way in there. Oh, here's the ball band for Heather's yarn, Earl Grey Fiber Company. And this is what I have left of my third skein of the main color. See all the beautiful pinks and golds in this caramely, rusty brown-orange color. And then here's my second contrast color, which is this beautiful olive green that leans like a yellow undertone. And then here is the remaining of my first contrast color, the orchidy color with gold and rust. I would not have had enough for the hem. If you use sport weight and you don't do other modifications, you'd probably be fine, but since I lengthened the body and lengthened the sleeves and used DK weight yarn, I used more yarn. And what else about this? Oh, I went down a needle size because I tend to do that with all of Tiff's patterns. She knits tighter than I do, I knit slightly looser than she does, and so I just know that I always need to change my needle size for patterns that I test for her. I'm looking here at my notes. The gauge is 20 stitches for 4 inches of stockinette in the round work on the main needles. And I know that with this yarn, what needles that I needed. And yeah, so I'm trying to think if there was anything else I was going to say about this. Maybe I'll put in some pictures here on the screen so you can see it worn, but I will wear it on my next YouTube episode so that you can see it worn on a body and moving around. What else? Did I say there were 10 sizes? Smallest size I think is a finished 32 inches. Largest size is a finished 64 inches chest circumference, and I knit the second size. What else do I need to say about this? Sorry for the abrupt ending earlier. The camera battery died. I don't have another one to switch it out with, so I charged it for a bit, and I might have to do that periodically because, yeah, we're just gonna roll with it and see what happens. The next finished project I'm going to share with you is a pair of socks. These are my first pair of socks for the Falling Leaves Sock Knit Along, hosted by Denise of Earth Tones Girl. I'm going to hold one up closer so you can see it. I showed these as a work in progress last time. I think I showed them as a work in progress last time. I'm pretty sure I did. So here's a fold over cuff with a pop of color like I like to do, and I will link to my tutorial either in the screen up here or in the description box below this video. And I did a 3x1 or knit 3 purl 1 ribbing in the leg, did a shadow wrap heel, followed the tutorial by Denise of Earth Tones Girl, continue the 3x1 ribbing on the instep, so the top half of the stitches, the stockinette on the bottom half, and then knit a toe. The yarns I used are Briar Rose is the colorway, by Kim of Kim Dye's Yarn, and that's this beautiful brown. It's a very warm brown with orchid, pink, and oranges. And then my pop of color contrast here is what's remaining from my 2021 Yarn Advent dyed by River of a Knitter's Homestead. And it's like it's a silver stellina orchid color with some speckling in it. And it's remaining from my main skein. I think it's called Christmas Cottage. And so I used about 12 grams for the contrast color and 50 grams for the main. And it worked out perfectly. The amount of yarn I have remaining is right here. And it's like maybe 1.5 grams, I think. So I can easily use this in any other little project, like a small stripy project where I only need, you know, a couple rounds or something. So I will be saving these for that. And I used US 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles, ChowGoo 9-inch circulars, and I knit them 2 at a time on their own separate needles. I cast on 56 stitches for these. It's a 400 yards for 100 gram yarn, and that gives me like 1 inch of negative ease. So really happy with how these turned out, and I really like this length. I actually wrote up like a little recipe, if you will, on my blog, which I haven't used in a while, but I've had that blog for years. And it just seemed like a good place to put the recipe up because not everybody uses Ravelry. It is a recipe though, not a pattern. You don't pay for it. There's really not like pattern support, if you will. I link to like Denise's tutorial on the shadow wrap heel. I talk about how I do the fold over cuff. I do not give like stitch counts for everything because you can cast on really whatever you want as long as it's divisible by 4 because there's a 3x1 rib. But basically it's just a recipe, and so if you know a little bit about sock knitting, it'll make sense to you. If you don't, I recommend going to buy a pattern that teaches you about sock knitting. Or not necessarily about sock knitting, but you can go to the library, get books. There's lots of YouTube tutorials out there. It is not meant to teach you how to knit socks. It is basically my recipe for these, which have come to be like my favorite shorty sock recipe because I feel like this fold over cuff provides stability. It doesn't stretch out. It hugs my ankles. It's really comfortable. The ribbing also hugs my feet without it being too tight or too loose. And then the shadow wrap heel is so fun to knit. I can do it on my 9-inch circulars. The only time I switch to 32-inch magic loop is for the toes. I think that's it for these. Okay, the next finished project I'd like to share with you is, well, there's 2 of them, but they're the same thing. It is the Bandana Cowl by Pearl Soho. It is a free pattern that they recently refreshed. It's a pattern they've had forever, for years, and they recently refreshed it to have more versions, to like color blocking, striping, monogramming, and I was so surprised and delighted when Pearl Soho asked me if I would like to try out their Plenty base, which is 100% non-superwash, extra fine merino, and it's listed I think as a worsted weight, but I feel like it knits up more like an Aran weight at 139 yards for 100 grams. This pattern does use up pretty much all of the yarn. I think the skeins come a little bit more than 100 grams, but I've used 100 grams for each one. I think one of them I used 101, and the other one I used 100 or 98 or something close to that. So I've knit 2 solid ones so far, and this yarn is so soft. I feel like there's a misconception that if something is non-superwash, it has to be rough or itchy or scratchy or rustic, which I don't like calling it rustic because, again, people automatically assume it's like itchy and scratchy. But this, I mean, it's extra fine merino, but it has 0 itch factor. I mean, I'm not super sensitive or anything, but I feel like this is definitely softer than this like Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted non-superwash. It's so, so soft. And it's super drapey. Now let me show you something. This yarn I feel like isn't super tightly wound. Now I am not an expert on like spinning, definitely not spinning, but like yarn composition, I guess you would call it. I don't really know. But okay, this is an end I had cut off from this one that I had made. And look at how, like, I didn't untwist it. it's just kind of like coming undone on its own. And there are lots of, is it called plies? I don't even know. Is that focusing? I hope so. But it's kind of like undoing on itself. And maybe that contributes to the drapiness of it. I don't really know, but when it's knit up, and I didn't find it like particularly splitty or anything, it was fine. I used my Knit Picks Shorties interchangeables, and it's knit on US 10s or 6mm, so it knits up pretty quick. And yeah, I didn't have any issues with splitting. I just thought that was interesting, so I showed you. But yeah, these are the shorties that I'm knitting them on. And the construction of this is so interesting. Okay, so they have a knit along going on. I feel like I'm all over the place. So sorry. And it started already. I think they have an official kickoff, but they announced it end of September, I think, so you could just start knitting them then. And I think it runs through end of November, but don't quote me on that. It's all on their website. It's also on their Instagram, so check there for details. But this first color I knit in Red Pine. It's in lovely red. Second one is I knit in Laurel Leaf. And Laurel Leaf is kind of a tealy, dark, foresty green. It leans more blue than it does yellow. I'm gonna just put it on for you. And it comes in one size. But I feel like it's just super comfortable and easy to wear because you just throw it on. And there is shaping involved, and it's all using short rows. And they write the pattern to show you German short rows or wrap and turns, and I did both. So on the red one, I used German short rows, and on this green one, I used, nope, wrong way. I used wrap and turns on the red one and German short rows on this green one, and I can't tell the difference. They were both easy to knit and easy directions to follow. And yeah, I just did both just to see what would happen, and they turned out just the same. What else to say? I feel like this is a great gift knit. These actually, neither of these are staying with me. These are going as a set to my brother and sister-in-law. They don't watch this, so they won't know. So don't tell them if you know them. But yeah, this will be for them. I knit them matching red and green colorwork hats another year. So I think this will be really fun, and they can, you know, trade or do whatever they want to do. But these will be going to them. I think it's super cute. And yeah, just super wearable. I feel like this easily goes under a jacket, over a sweater. It's just that little bit sometimes that you need on your neck to feel warmer, especially in the fall. I mean, fall, winter, spring, all the time. So, and it doesn't fall off like maybe a scarf might. I feel like a cowl can just be so nice to wear. And what I like about this shape is that it's not like flippy. I feel like some cowls, if it's exactly like a tube where the top and bottom are the same circumference, it can kind of get flippy, and it bothers me. I just don't like that, especially if it's color work or something. Then you can see the inside, nothing wrong with floats, but or it like gets really scrunched down so you don't see anything that you did. So then what's the point of knitting it if you can't see it? Anyway, just my thing. So what I like about this is that the way the shaping is done, it just drapes really nicely, and yeah, easy to wear. So highly recommend giving this pattern a try. Again, it's free. It's on the Pearl Soho's website. Join the knit along if you feel like it. I think you could try using worsted weight yarn, but I feel like it knits up closer to Aran weight yarn. It's 4 stitches per inch, right? I have it written as 4 stitches per inch. Yeah, 4 stitches per inch stockinette. Okay, that is it for the finished projects today. Let's jump into works in progress. I finished my decaf hot cinnamon tea earlier. It's a lovely black tea that has a very strong aroma and very bold flavor. So then I made a new cup of tea. This is decaf Earl Grey. I added in a splash of milk so it wouldn't be boiling hot, but it's still pretty hot. So I think I'll set it down, but it smells so good. Okay, works in progress. Let's see here. let's start with this one. This is a patchwork project bag I sewed last year. The moth in the center, one has it going down and one has it going up. I just love the fabrics on here. They are perfectly autumnal. I've mentioned in the past, and I'll say it again because inevitably somebody always asks, and it's fine that you ask, but I'll just tell you right now, I don't follow a tutorial, I don't follow a pattern to make my bags. I've been sewing since I was a little kid. It's in my blood. My mom sews, my grandma sews, it's my mother-in-law sews. I'm surrounded by people who sew, and yeah, I just really enjoy making them for personal use. There's a boxed bottom. I used a canvas on here, and then yeah, just cotton. This one has a cotton linen lining and a drawstring. But yeah, tons of YouTube tutorials and patterns paid for or free out there, so I just suggest you Google it and look for something that you like. In here, I have my second pair of socks for the Falling Leaves Sock Knit Along. I showed you the yarn last time. It is a collaboration between Denise of Earth Tones Girl and Michelle of Woolens and Nosh. Here's Denise's logo. Here's the back of the ball band. The sheep on the pie is Michelle of Woolens and Nosh's logo. This self-striping yarn colorway is called Falling in Love. And it's 90% superwash targhee, 10% nylon. It's a 3-ply at 411 yards for 100 grams. It is a very round yarn, and I love it. So, my yarn is split into 2 equal balls. I will show, or not show, but I'll link to the tutorial, or I guess how-to video that I made on how I like to prepare self-striping yarns for knitting socks, 2 at a time or in tandem. So I have them on ChowGoo 9-inch circular needles. I believe I'm using US 1.5s here, so they're 2.5 millimeter. Here are some super cute cuffs, and I've just started the legs. Here we go. So fun. And I have knit one round where the color change happens so that I don't get the purl bump of the previous color, and it doesn't interrupt the ribbing. So I'm doing a 2x2 rib, knit 2, purl 2, and I just went until like I felt like stopping. So I think there's maybe 24-ish rounds or something, I don't really remember. I just went through the stripes and then started knitting in stockinette. I have a Progress Keeper on here by Maria of Woodland Forest. This one has a leaf and a gemstone. This one has a teacup and saucer. Hope it's showing up there. There we go. And the heart with the gemstone is also by Maria. So, these are my socks. Now this project I just keep in the car because as kids get older they tend to have activities, and when they have activities mommy tends to be sitting in the car or waiting somewhere because it doesn't always make sense to go home, sometimes errands and things like that. But yeah, so these are my waiting socks, if you will, and they're just a fun project to have on hand, and the stripes are super fun. I'm trying to think what else I have to say about that. I think I cast on 56 stitches, and I'll just knit until I feel like doing a heel. I'll probably do a shadow wrap heel. Yeah. Second work in progress I'd like to share with you is also a pair of socks. I have them in this really fun bag that I sewed, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but it's very autumnal. It's got donuts, leaves, hot cocoa or pumpkin spice, whatever you desire. Could be tea. Anyway, super fun. And in here I have a pair of socks that I've started using the Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad sock set for October. Here is the ball band. And this sock base is 463 yards for 100 grams, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And it comes with a main color and a mini. Here is the mini. It's a caramely brown. The main yarn I have split into two. To knit my socks in tandem. And this one's a variegated color with cream and bright orange and bright yellow. It's variegated for sure, and there's a little bit of speckling in it. So I've cast on the High Desert socks, and that's a pattern by Lindsay Fowler of Larkspur Knits. I've knit this pattern maybe a dozen times, no joke. Different variations, but I've knit, yeah, probably a dozen of these pair of socks. They're DK weight. They come in all sizes from kids through adult, and I just really enjoy it. It's a fun one to knit. And it's a great way to use single skeins of fingering weight yarn that you have, because you just hold it double, or DK weight yarns. So I've just started. It's a cuff down sock. Here are my cute little cuffs. And I have on there polymer clay progress keepers that I made, I think last year. They're little coffee cups. I don't know if they'll focus. Let's see. Coffee cups with whipped cream on top. I think they look really cute. One looks more coffee cup-ish than the other. But I think this one, if I can get it turned around, has an orange heart on it. So fun. So yeah, I've just cast these on. These I'm also knitting as part of the Falling Leaves sock knit along. They fit the theme. And I am knitting the adult small. I think there are seven or eight sizes. It goes from child small to adult large. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 sizes. And it's a fun one to knit. This work in progress that I'm going to share with you, I'm just going to basically show it to you real quick where I'm at. It's a test knit for Samantha Guerin. It's the Fall Frolic sweater. And I showed it to you last time. I cannot remember if I had split for sleeves last time. I don't think so. It's a top-down colorwork circular yoke. So I'm just going to show it to you and kind of tell you where I'm at with it. Here it is. Oh, it's so lovely. The body stitches, since I had finished my first skein of yarn, I just put stoppers on the cables because I'm using the interchangeable needles here. And then I started on the sleeves. So I have the sleeves knit in tandem, and I created a video talking about kind of my needle management for stuff like that, so I'll link to that here, either in one of the corners here, but definitely in the description box below with this project. But yeah, I have my sleeves each on their own needles right now, and I use the blue Chalu Shorty set. It looks like this. And the needles come with a longer needle and a shorter needle, and so what I do is on each sleeve I use one long and one short. So you have US 4s through US 8s, and then you have a shorter needle here, and then a longer needle for the same size. And then I won't go into detail about it because I have a video that I made all about it that you can reference. But yeah, so that's how I'm knitting them 2 at a time. And that way, when I finish with one, I'm not thinking, oh, I have to do it all over again. I can just do like 10 rounds on one, 10 rounds on the other, and kind of switch back and forth so they're constantly playing catch up with each other, which is kind of the way I knit socks. And sleeves really are just like socks in some ways, right? Big tube. So yeah, that's where I'm at with this. Oh, I just love it. I'm using Pearl Soho's linen quill yarn. I had purchased this main color Peach Stone in anticipation of knitting a sweater, so I had 3 skeins of it. It's 439 yards for 100 grams. And it's 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, 15% linen. And then the colors that I'm using for the contrast are remaining from previous projects. So I have them in this little baggie here. But I have honey pink as that top one, turmeric yellow as the second one, peony pink as the third one, and rosewood pink as the fourth. And there's going to be color work on the sleeve as well. So I'm still debating what colors I'm going to use for that, but I think I'm going to use different ones than the yoke. So I have this chestnut red and this dark iris purple that were from my Deep Autumn Half and Half Triangles wrap. So I have two, and then I need a third color. So we'll see when I get there what I do. But yes, here's a peach stone, which is like a gray-brown with purple undertones. I don't think you would automatically think there's purple, but it's one of those colors that just has a lot of depth to it, but very subtle. So I feel like it changes its warm coolness depending on if it's in the sun or the shade. And I just really like it. I think it's so beautiful. And I like this collar. And yeah, this test knit isn't due until middle of November. So you'll probably see it a few more times as I'm working on it. But once I'm finished, I'll just save the showing and telling of it until release or after the release. So that is that one. The next one you've seen plenty of times, and I will just show you it briefly, I guess. It's the Half and Half Triangles wrap by Pearl Soho, free pattern. I've been knitting this for over a year, not this one, but this pattern for over a year. And this is my fifth wrap. I knit them slightly smaller or in between sizes. So the free pattern comes with a smaller size and a larger size, or a large size and even larger size, I guess you could say. The smaller cast on is 190 stitches, larger cast on is 260 stitches. There's a new revised pattern out that has striping and color blocking on it, and I believe that cast on is even bigger. And yeah, I just really like the 2-color version. If you want to find out more, watch my previous episode if you haven't watched that one, but I explain a little more in detail as to what draws me to this pattern. But I use 2 skeins of each color because that is most economical for me, and I am able to block the size out to pretty much the large size, so it works for me. I use US 3 Addy needles, and do I have the, here it is. It's the original Addy Turbo, and I usually use Chow Goose, but I felt like with the repetitive constant motion, it was hurting my fingertips. And since it's a long-term project, that was going to keep being a problem, so I needed to fix that problem. So I got these needles. I don't use Addies a lot. This is actually the only time that I've used Addies, and it's just not as pointy, and so it doesn't hurt my fingers. Again, these are US 3s. This is a 40-inch cable. I find that comfortable for me to knit this wrap on. Some people prefer longer and some people prefer shorter, so you do what works for you. Here's my progress on it. I have since finished the first skein, and I'm on the second one, which if you've knit this wrap, you know that's kind of a milestone. So there's a few milestones. The milestones are each time you finish a cake and when you do your color change. And so that's exciting, and this is where I'm at. I cast on 230 stitches, I slip 1 stitch at the edge, and I do German short rows instead of wrap and turns. And that's basically it. My colors are Red Poppy, and my second color is Rhubarb Pink. Grab it here. So it's this like deep magenta and this orangey red. And this one, if you've been following along, I name all of my wraps. The color combinations are often inspired by nature or things going on in my life or different life phases and things like that. But this fifth one is called Purpose, Passion, and Possibilities, and I started it on September 1st, which is kind of like the start of the school year. I mean, that's not when school started, but September is, and I feel like you kind of go into that school year with a sense of purpose, you know, with excitement and passion for what's happening, and, you know, excitement for possibilities too, and not necessarily just a school year, but I feel like that fall vibe that's kind of the energy that I get. And I really like these two colors together. I feel like there's a little bit of synergy there. And yeah, it's just good positive vibes, positive energy. All right, we are on to the Eats and Reads section. I recently picked up a book from the library, and I'm going to put a picture of it here on the screen. All the library books have that protective cover on it, so I feel like every time I show it, it's there's just a lot of reflection, but it's The Soul of a Woman by Isabel Allende, and she's one of my all-time favorite authors. I just like the way she tells her stories. She really draws you in, and you really connect with the characters. You're invested in them. This one is nonfiction and tells about her story. And even though it's nonfiction, she still has that storytelling storytelling way of being witty and captivating and kind of like not fluffy, right? Like she just tells it as it is. There's like a dry humor in there, and she just comes across as someone that's like really cool, you know? Like I don't know how else to explain it. Like I really enjoy Isabel Allende's writing. So I just picked this up. It's I've just started it. It's not a very long book. It's maybe, let's see here. Oh yeah, I'll just show you. It's not even an inch thick, maybe. So I know it's going to be a really fun read. And again, I've just started it. Soul of a Woman on Impatient Love, Long Life, and Good Witches. And yeah, I'm really excited to really delve into it. I like the conversational language she uses, and it's like she's just talking to a friend, like, this is my life, this is what excites me, this is what's going on. And she always puts in the political atmosphere of what's happening in that time frame, because it makes a difference. It makes a difference on everyday lives. It makes a difference into what happens in the future or what's happened in the past. And I just really appreciate the way she writes and tells her stories. As far as cooking goes, I've shared a lot of stuff, I think, in the vlog in the beginning of stuff that I've been making. There's been a lot of bread making. I've been making bread out of the bread toast. Oops, I just hit myself in the face. Bread Toast Crumbs by Alexandra Stafford. And a shout out to Samantha Guerin, because late one night, she and I were talking about bread baking, and she also really enjoys the recipes in this book. And I've been just using a Dutch oven so far because I didn't have the glass Pyrex bowls that's recommended for these recipes. And I think at the time when I got this, it was actually kind of hard to get those bowls. And I don't know if it's because of the popularity of this book, and so everybody was buying the bowls or what, but I couldn't get them. And Samantha was like, oh, she just recommended going to the Pyrex website to get them. And I didn't even think of that at the time. I just figured, oh, I can't find them at Target. So I just didn't get them. And it is a difference baking them in the Pyrex bowls versus in the Dutch oven. The method is slightly different, and the crust comes out different. So the crust coming out of the Dutch oven is much harder, and currently I have young children who are having a lot of loose teeth, like they're losing their baby teeth, and so it's harder for them to eat things that are a little harder. You have to chew a little more. So I went onto the Pyrex website and I found the bowls. They were on sale even. And I got the 2 1-quart size glass bowls. Now I have to say, I was a little nervous about baking in glass. Not that my mom didn't. I mean, my mom baked in those amber colored Pyrex casserole dishes growing up, and so I remember that, and like Corningware and stuff like that, but at least I think she did. But I was just nervous about like glass exploding. Like, I guess I'm thinking back to chemistry lab, and, you know, if you set a glass beaker on a cold surface, it's going to crack. But, of course, you know, you have hot pads for stuff like that, right? So things shouldn't explode in the oven or explode on my kitchen counter. Anyway, I've done it a few times now, and nothing has exploded. Everything is just fine, and the crust comes out lovely because you butter the bowls, and then you put the dough in and bake it in it, and it's delicious. Kids love it. I love it. My husband loves the bread, too. Everybody loves it. It's a winner. So I've done the quinoa and flax, I've done the oatmeal maple, I think that's what it's called, and I've done the cheddar, parmesan, and they're all delicious. So, highly recommend. The other thing I've made, and usually I make in September, but this year I was a little late, is the apple cider caramels from Deb Perlman's Smitten Kitchen cookbook. I make them every year. I get Honey Crisp apple cider, not from concentrate, and then you boil that down to make the caramels. And then instead of using heavy cream, I use coconut cream. So I just put a can of coconut milk, like the full fat version, in the fridge, and so that the cream solidifies more. And then you can just scoop out the cream to use. So that's what I did, and they turned out delicious. We just have some lactose intolerant individuals in our family, so I just try to limit the lactose or like do substitutions when possible. So yeah, they came out really good, and if I didn't have footage in the beginning, hopefully I am inserting some on the screen now so that you can see what they look like because they're delicious. But yeah, I think that is it for some of the cooking stuff. Oh, I didn't give you any garden update in the beginning. We basically have had to clean everything up because we've had 2 freezes so far, or frost or whatever, and so everything died. So we had to pull everything up, and we compost it all. And then for the dahlias, those are the only plants that we dig up, like the tubers, and then you have to let them dry, and then before storing them for the winter, otherwise they'll mold and get gross. Generally, we like less high maintenance plants, but for dahlias, we'll do it. So that all had to come out. And carrots we've picked, and so hopefully I'll have a picture here on the screen so you can see the beautiful carrots. I feel like carrots are kind of annoying, actually. They take all summer to grow, they take up space, and then you pick one and it's just like one, right? We tend to overcrowd them because the seeds look so small, and we just, put a whole bunch in a row. But yes, they came out beautifully. I'm not sure if we'll keep planting carrots every year because, yeah, like I said, they take up a lot of space and you only pull out one, and they take all summer. But whatever. Yeah, I think that is it for Eats and Reads. I wanted to send out a huge thank you to everybody who has been watching, supporting, encouraging me, writing comments. And it's not so much about just like writing a comment. Like, it's the interaction and knowing that I'm talking to people. I don't know if other people feel this way, but like when I'm talking to a camera, I'm just talking to a camera, right? I'm essentially talking to myself. And then you publish and it goes out into this like internet void, black hole space. And you don't really know who's watching. You don't really know who's listening. You just don't know who it's reaching. And then on YouTube, likes are anonymous. Dislikes are anonymous. Subscribers aren't all visible. It depends if you switch it to be visible or not. And so like, I really don't know who I'm talking to unless someone comments on my YouTube channel or like goes over to Instagram or Ravelry to send me a message or something like that. So I really appreciate it when people do reach out and say something. I mean, even if it's like emojis or something in the comments, at least I know someone is listening and somebody is hearing me out. And so I really, really appreciate it. And it has nothing to do for me with numbers or like subscriber counts or like anything like that, because a number is just a number. I feel like it's a matter of like, quality versus quantity type of thing, or maybe quality is not the right word, but unmeasurable things versus these numbers. I feel like our whole life is measured in numbers, and some of them are so arbitrary. Like, why does it even matter? And similarly, like, I feel like numbers can be so distracting, like in a bad way or negative way. I feel like they can make you feel a certain way that doesn't have to be that way. Like people talking about how many subscribers they have, or they get disappointed if they don't have as many likes on something as they were hoping for. Well, I guess what do those things even really mean? From like a public health perspective, I feel like you're always talking about reach, right? Like how many people can you reach? How many people can you disseminate information to, or like whatever your goal or purpose or whatever it is. But at the same time, we're looking at like the meaningful, the impact of it, right? Like, what is your main goal? What is your purpose for it? What is your focus? And then I feel like when you can draw yourself back to that focus or purpose, then those distracting numbers can just like fizzle away. Like, they just don't mean anything, right? Like, what is the point of those numbers? And where was I going with this? Basically, thank you. Thank you for your meaningful interaction. Thank you for your support and encouragement. It's been almost 3 years since I first started this channel, and I went into it not with a lot of expectations, but rather that I just wanted to have this space to show up, to represent, not represent all people or all makers or anything like that, but just to take up some space in a good way, hopefully. Like, yeah, I had things to share, and I wanted to put it out there and see what would happen. And here we are, and I'm still happy in this space. I still find joy in this space, and I find lots of joy in making, and I like to share that with you. So, on that note, I hope you are doing well. I hope you are taking care of yourselves and your neighbors, your loved ones, and finding joy and inspiration in your daily life, whether it's for like 30 seconds or a minute or all day long. I just hope you find a little bit of that. So, cheers to being creative, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.